G'day guys, this is CW. Welcome to another weekly developer update. We've got Aminio here once again. Nice to see your smiling face once again, mate. How are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to open up the new year. This is the first developer update of year number 3 for Ergo. So, I'm quite excited to see where we're going to be a year from now. I think we have a pretty nice roadmap in front of us in terms of how we're going to build out the network, and we've certainly grown a significant amount since we started the second year. So if we can continue that momentum, it's going to be a very different ecosystem in a year.
Yeah, it's been an amazing year to see both the development side and then the ecosystem growth as well. It's been really great to see. So looking forward into the year that's coming, what sort of excites you that's coming up?
Sure. So Node 5.0 is going to give us a big performance boost on the base layer. I'm pretty excited to see how that develops and what kind of metrics we are able to play with as that rolls out. I think on the mining side, we're going to see custom mining clients, which is going to be interesting. It allows pools to set their own economics instead of working with our default way of sorting what transaction to mine.
Yep.
We've started to put together a layer 2 focus group for developers, and I think if we can get a open source cookbook with various layer 2 solutions and documentation, how to build them, and a general understanding of when and where each makes sense. That is going to be huge in terms of, offloading some of the potential pressure that's on the network as things grow.
Yeah, that one's going to be huge because obviously each DApp sort of has its own requirements, and to be able to have that sort of all documented and, like you said, in a cookbook for sort of an aspiring developer to come in and then have that at their fingertips would be amazing.
Yeah, that's power of open source. I'm hoping to see that cookbook come about, and hopefully it's one of those things where support for it never really stops. I'm also pretty excited to see some primitives for DeFi. We have the second generation Oracle pool build that will come out this year. We are playing around with Dexy. That should probably come out this year. And the beauty of open source ecosystem is, like, sometimes the greatest blessings are quite unexpected.
And as an example?
Sure. If you look at this last year, there was quite a lot. NightOwl Casino is a good app that I'm looking forward to. I'm quite excited to see, kind of the speculation of gambling, but also the balance where you can either be the house or the player. That's just a really neat concept.
Yeah.
Swamp Audio potentially opening up audio NFTs. I know I've been bringing that up on actually developer updates probably since before year 2 started.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to see the organic growth. At the Ergo Foundation, we don't try to be the hand of the market, right? And a lot of people look at decentralized ecosystems and they kind of bring this investment mix that it needs to have a CEO in charge. And the truth is, Ergo is an open source project, so we welcome anybody anywhere with ideas to come and build. And one unique thing about us is these developer updates, where you can actually talk to the core developers of the platform. You can drop your ideas, you can ask for reviews, you can say, hey, does this make sense? That's pretty unique in this space. And if we can retain anything a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I would hope it would be that open source mentality, to where the bigger focus is let's just build cool stuff.
Exactly. And I think you just touched on there, having access to the core developers, but then also having access to people like yourself and other foundation members. It's really good being able to have that community access to be able to ask questions and get answers directly. It's amazing. You don't really sort of see that throughout the ecosystem. It's great.
Yeah, I try to be available. You know, I'm a community member first. I represent the community, and that means, you know, from the most active developer to the most disgruntled member on social media.
Oh, that's funny. One thing I'm really looking forward to actually sort of being built out is someone sort of going down the collateralized lending sort of route. Maybe it's good to see something like a compound or even like a liquid finance, something along those lines being built out on Ergo.
Yeah, that's going to be something that's quite interesting to watch. You know, right now we have a lot of noise and trauma in the market based on people that came into decentralized ecosystems, brought basically some weird hybrid where they were, you know, acting as a centralized institution, making just insane leveraged loans and, you know, hedged bets, and they got wrecked, you know, and so on one hand, everyone's like, oh my goodness, you know, look at what's happening in crypto, but that directly is not crypto. Actual decentralized finance protocols are still humming away. Their smart contracts are still working. Everything is within the parameters that they were set to work with. And so I think it does kind of humble people to say, okay, this is why, you know, algorithmic stability and, you know, determinism in contracts is better than having, you know, basically some of these, you know, large managers at the head of funds, because, you know, it turns out they were the biggest degenerates in this space.
Very well put, mate. I don't know how to segue that into the developer update, but here we go.
Let's just hop in.
Yeah. All right, so jumping in, we can kick off. Do you want to lead away, mate?
Sure, let's start with jozinek. So he's been working on Sigma. Last week was a holiday, and he worked on the pretty printer for the Ergo tree, which is a part of the ScoreX Sigma state interpreter. That's where he's going to be for a bit. I hope you had a nice holiday.
Yeah, most definitely. Moving on, we have Apextheory. Just doing some work on a couple of PRs and built an understanding on how the mempool is structured and maintained. Introduced a new unconfirmed transaction wrapper class and made some good progress for refactoring the mempool. Just pushed a draft this weekend to make sure that he's on the right track. So if you want to jump on there just to make sure that that's the case, then by all means do so. And on to Sepehr with GraphQL.
Yeah, so GraphQL, it looks like they've actually pushed the second version this week. Added some new functionality. They've added a state resolver and moved the epic resolver under that class, and then they've added the info resolver for the application.
There's a couple of tongue twisters there with the pretty tree printer and then the resolver. Yeah, that's a nice one. I saw the implementation actually on the GraphQL side. It's pretty cool to be able to see all those queries.
Yeah, that's going to be big for, you know, just decentralizing infrastructure.
Yeah,
I believe that's Dockerized at this point. So I'm curious to see if we can even have, you know, like one thing I want this year, right? If I have a wish list, we need a really solid full node wallet once we get the NEPO syncs out. And it would be really cool to have, you know, the ability to self-host Explorer instances as well.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. One project that kind of came out of the Ergo hack with Ergosphere, having that umbrella sort of a program where you can sort of plug and play different applications. Having something like that to be able to spin up an instance of the Explorer or something along those lines with Dex bots, oracles, a node wallet. That'd be great, I think.
Yeah, I would love to see us transition to like the green button, right? To where the barrier of entry in terms of like the technical complexity of installation and running these things gets easier and easier and easier with time.
Makes my life a lot easier then as well, trying to do all this testing. Moving on, we've got Anon 2020. So back after a few weeks absence, welcome back. So started on some UI updates and stealth address merge. That's nice. Meanwhile, worked on the off-chain logic for the contracts for the new mixing protocol. That's a work in progress. So it's great to see some stuff happening there. Moving on, we have MrStahlfelge.
Sure. This last week, he continued porting the wallet app to desktop. He's looked into GraphQL support for the wallet app and AppKit to see if they can switch that to a newer Explorer API. His main focus was on the Mosaik plugin system again. He wrote another developer tutorial. Pre-release is already available there on Google Docs. He's making some research and implemented a POC to run Mosaik apps within web browsers, which turned out to be easier than he expected, which is always nice. Usually development goes the other way. Yep. That way, dApp developers can use a single code base to show a UI within wallet apps and on web browsers. So you kind of get a unified experience. That's pretty cool to see. I did actually ask him today if he was planning on supporting his cold wallet signing from the desktop app, and he basically said that he's played with it, and a lot depends on the webcam. Whether the webcam can refocus properly, but that's potentially in play, which is pretty neat to see as well. That way, people that like to run the PC side can still cold sign without having to deal with mobile.
Yeah, it's something to do with the mobile, with your webcam being able to focus on the QR and sort of sign the transaction. So, yeah, watch this space. That'd be cool to see. Moving on, we've got Luivatra with the EGIO staking. So they unfortunately ran into a bug in the contract, which caused some funds to become stuck, and then the whole protocol had to halt. So it gives a little bit of a rundown on sort of what happened there. Quite a big explanation. So if you want to read that yourself, by all means do so. Then moving on, we've got Ergopad with the unspent. So after a long period of performance issues, they finally are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel after a lot of work's been done by Leaf. The general idea is to have a dedicated database besides the Explorer to keep track of exactly those things that are needed for the website. So staking info, vesting info, all those sort of things along those lines. And then just to keep the database up to date whenever a new block is made. And then moving on to Ergo-python-appkit. So along those lines, they have some transaction types that have trouble being signed by the AppKit, but they can be signed by the node. So we, as in himself and the AppKit experts, are now looking into whether the problem lies in the Ergo AppKit itself or it's a Python layer on top. And Noob 77777 has made some groundwork for using the Ergo auth and added methods for that in the Ergo-python-appkit.
That's great to see that Leif is working on a dedicated database besides the Explorer. That's something that I would encourage dApp developers to look into. That way they can potentially have more reliable performance and not beat the hell out of the Explorer making calls too often.
Yeah, especially with the way the sort of the staking rewards were being spat out all the time, and sort of frees up a lot of that Explorer load. Moving on, we've got Captain Nemo.
Sure. So it looks like on Nautilus, the dApp connector has added ergo-auth support. The implementation is under private testing with dApp developers, investigating an issue on spending to pay to script with some specific scripts on testnet. Not sure, what that scripts are, to be honest. Then we get into ergo-graphql. He fixed out of order registers issue. He fixed the resolver. He released version 0.2.0 with some breaking changes, and then gives you a link to see the breaking changes if you're playing around with that. And he released version 0.2.1 of TypeScript static typing library, which is a pretty neat open source thing they're putting out there in terms of building out GraphQL for developers.
Making everyone's life easier.
Yep. Documentation.
So moving on. Good on you. The Sentient NFT, the Sentient chain, has got the client nodes to connect to the testnet, starting to set up the mining pool and testing the testnet before opening it to the open community, I guess, to go and try and break it.
Nice to see.
Yep. Moving on, we've got Kushti.
So 4.0.32 has been merged, and he's going to push that live in a bit. Minor, but some improvements and fixes in this release. He's checking the P2P and mempool code, doing issues and PRs with improvements are on the way in that regard. He's checking 5.0 voting and activation in DevNet now. And we'll launch the public testnet later this week. There was a issue in KuCoin caused by a pool that made a non-compliant transaction, which created a little bit of issue that caused them to need to go in and update their node. But that was relatively minor, and that got sorted. Looks like the Dexy paper first draft came out. It's still a little bit raw, but it covers kind of the basic framework for Dexy. He's still discussing contracts with scalahub and the backend implementation with code for us. So that's something that we'll watch and see how that develops, what changes. But I think the core aspects are already in that first draft, so I'd recommend people hop on and read through it if they're interested. He's also reviewing Nitrum 147's EIP on custom token fees and encrypted messages.
Yeah, that's a sort of unique use case there as well, and I'll have to jump on and read the Dexy paper, get my head around that. Moving on, we've got koutelier. They've got cometgag meme page is now live. So if you want to post your memes, upvote and comment. So they're working on adding a Nautilus dApp connector so you can receive tips and do a share button as well. So I had a little bit of a scroll through there. There's some funny ones, but yeah, if you want to have a bit of a giggle, by all means, jump on.
Yeah, I'll have to look. I haven't had time. Next we hear from scalahub. I know he's been working a lot on Dexy. That's kind of the paper that they're working on, and as well as the actual implementation that's happening in parallel. Actually, I would say most of it is built before the paper's written, which is kind of funny, but the devs at heart, right?
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to push another PR about the bank fee. And there were a couple of issues pointed out by Code for Us in the contracts, which he'll need to go in and look at.
Yep, nice. Moving on, we've got a big update here from Greenhat. So Tim L finished the fix for the peer discovery in Chrome, working on a vote for update pull command with jozinek. They've added the predefined data point source enum and working on locking the update NFT for update contract box. And then his progress himself has on the Ergo node interface, fixed wallet status JSON encoding and updated the Ergo lib to 0.17.0. Added optional input boxes support in signed transaction, and then on the Oracle core, added a verbose option for overriding the log level to debug the logging of the bootstrap command. The work in progress, manual testing on bootstrapping, a new pull to the testnet's been fixed on the wallet status, JSON encoding, and added chain transaction support to the Ergo node interface, currently signing token minting transactions. And then also the WIP for complex scenarios testing on the CI, and added a box generation to the Ergo chain sim and fixed the UTXO simulation. Another big update. So we scroll through all these and onto Cheese Enthusiast.
All right, you want me to cover that?
Sure.
So it looks like Getblok is improving their subpooling. They've added a new pre-processing stage to calculate shares and unconfirmed balances before sending block rewards to the smart contracts. They've also added some general stability improvements. I know Plasma is probably the thing people are the most excited about. They've finished up the level DB implementation, so the library now works with either level DB or Sway. They did not get a chance to work on the Sway DB AVL storage structure yet. They've been experimenting with different contracts and structures for AVL trees to see the most efficient ways to pull data. With the level DB implementation complete, they think the library is ready for a beta release after cleanup, going through the code and refactoring, improving things. Aiming for next week, depending on how much time. That's always like the universal question, isn't it?
Exactly.
Looks like they've been mapping out ways to have smart pools operate on layer 2. Once he feels that the Plasma library works well, he'll be writing up some contracts that will provide the same or greater functionality compared to the current smart pool contracts. It looks like he believes that using AVL trees will significantly reduce the amount of boxes and transactions needed to pay out miners, and that will set them up for greater decentralization in the future, which is amazing.
Yes, another big update for this week. Seeing some guys pump out some really big updates. Onto pragmaxim. So just had some time off, so worked on this node improvement. So it's proof of work check in the headers when comparing the chains. So younger, older, equal, or forks. And moving on, we've got SpookyErgo.
SpookyErgo update. They launched their spooky hunt test game this week. So anybody that's up to playing with that, have fun. Looks like they're currently working on mobile controllers, better camera, game visuals in general, adding a timer. Looks like their dev just DM'd him that he fixed the monster's glitch error. They're working with another project to integrate Spooky Hunt into their project. They give a link there to check out the game and test it. And it says, if you play the game, please consider leaving feedback in their Discord server or, in this channel on Ergo Discord. Moreover, in a week, they'll reward someone with a rare spooky NFT to the address with the highest score. So those of you that are interested in not only testing it out, it looks like they're offering some incentive to users who want to try to win.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Don't have to worry about those monster glitches either. Moving on, we've got Ilya. He's actually created a little sort of Telegram notification app called Ka-Ching. So whenever your address receives a deposit, it will notify you. So it's just released the alpha version for this, the transaction notification service. The current implementation is to allow the users to track their addresses and get notifications when a new erg lands in their wallet. using icons there. Tripped me up. So far they're tracking 35 addresses. The best way to stress test it is tracking on multiple addresses. Had some issues yesterday on updating the service when the user subscribed for the new address, but now it's all solved and should work smoothly. Many cool stuff on the roadmap, including custom webhooks and basically turning it into an offline bot as a service for NFT sales, vending machines, token sales, scaling solutions, whatever you can think of. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool to see. A lot of use cases that can be plugged in to that.
Have an update for Share Node. So made multiple interviews with Node users in private and then throughout different surveys. So thanks for reaching out if you did sort of provide feedback there. I think there was a link on Twitter. And the conclusion was that while many node operators wouldn't mind to share that their node with other projects, on the demand side, people prefer to use their own node or a public free node. So just putting that aside now for the time being. And then on Sigma Valley, testing the sign message feature for the Nautilus to create a proper auth process, and then we'll show a tutorial on that in DApp step once it works. And then there's just a little sort of image here of a notification coming through when they received some erg. Ka-Ching.
That's a pretty nice tool. There's a lot of use cases for that.
Yeah, you can think of it on the aspect of, say, you make a sale on the auction house and obviously the notifications push through. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, miners get paid, potentially looking at like tracking known wallet addresses. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
You always have like the Binance notification thing is pretty popular. Maybe we'll get like the Ergo notification. Who knows? So it looks like Alex is finally establishing a layer 2 group. And I know he's excited about that because, he's been reading papers and, putting together frameworks for potential layer 2s for the better part of the second year. So having, something to plug in and interact with the community and share, a lot of what he's learned and what might make sense where is an exciting proposition moving forward.
Yeah, you can definitely tell how excited he is by the use of an emoji.
Yeah, that's like big deal.
So, do you want to keep going with Kushti's comment here?
Sure. So basically, they're playing around, and it looks like they had a issue where the assembler did not refund from a proxy contract, and he's saying that the Ergo wallet, can add registers to a block to protect by a contract, which is totally insecure in the general case. It says Ergo wallet and other wallets should not use registers from unknown applications at all. And then he's asking Morphic, what's the costing issue there? So,
yeah, something to check out. Moving on, we've got PGR 456, and with the alternative explorer, they found a name for this one called sigmaspace.io. Like that rolls off the tongue quite nicely. Yeah. So they've registered a domain and then finished with the explorer. Will run under explore.sigmaspace.io. It's still a work in progress, and now running the ergo-graphql at that link, as you can see. Already updated the ergo-graphql to 0.2.0, and then on the back end, just working on the API implementation.
No, that's lovely to see.
Yeah.
Plus, everyone used to make fun of us, so we named it Ergo everything, and now it's Ergo and Sigma everything. So that is growth. Let's keep that up, year 3.
See that the naming app is working.
Yeah, growth. I like it.
Jay the Ergod with NightOwl's update.
Sure. Looks like the front end, they're continuing to move the Next.js structure with Tailwind CC. The backend, they've fixed the Explorer backend. They've researched backend database solutions. Further testing and improvements with the roulette game workflow and payout service. The voting contract has been finalized. They're currently testing it. Other things, the content for the about page is completed. Content for their facts page is completed, and they're working with another dev team for the first third-party game integration, which is great to see.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So if you're unaware, NightOwl allows third-party developers to be able to plug in their own applications or own games into their platform. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. There's a lot of really unique stuff that people could play around with, in my opinion.
Just do it responsibly.
Yeah, well, I mean, even like, what if you're adding like the liquidity, what if the game pays out NFTs? And so, your liquidity is an NFT instead of Erg. And then, if somebody hits a certain thing, they win your NFT. And if not, they, pay the house a certain percentage that then is, dispersed. There's a lot of really just kind of fun things that I think creative minds can come up with.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like adding your watch to a poker pot.
Yeah.
Moving on. Nice little comment here from Captain Nemo. Damn, you are fast. Any plans to support their mempool services? That's just referring to PGR 456 with their sigmaspace.io. Moving on, we've got the Exle update from Chris Ray. On the back end, they've just finished up the single lender token boxes, working on the single lender token transactions, working on integrating the SLTs box model for the SLT controller and the SLT explorer, and then testing the API routes for the new API controllers, so Gate, SLE, and SLT. I'll just continue with the PGR 456. So just added the mempool tracker right now. This is just in regards to Nemo's comment. Just had to shut down the database for a short amount of time just because it got hammered with a select query, which has resulted in filling up the drives. Since GraphQL is the only exposed service, just guess it was maybe a way to produce a buggy query. So yeah, just going to keep monitoring that one. And on to LGD with GuapSwap.
All right, so GuapSwap, number one, they received a Goodwill grant of 10K SIG USD to fund their team's development.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I'm curious to see how they can build it out. Number two, they're writing a thorough white paper, tokenomics, and roadmap to share with the community. Number three, they've started progress on the landing page. Number four, they've started progress on GuapSwap lib library for GuapSwap CLI version 2 and Getblok integration, which is great. That probably means we're going to see some tokens to miners. Modifying multi-token swap contract so that miners will be able to do the following. Swap their mined Erg for up to a total of 10 tokens. That's up from the previous 3 on Ergodex and in any ratio they want. So that opens the door to what let's call a mining portfolio, where you have the ability to mine Ergo, choose whatever select assets are listed on Ergodex, and set your percentage of the portfolio you want to build, put your rigs to work, and it will act as like your investment manager, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's a really good unique use case.
Yeah, and the low fee environment is also big. I know that there are some swaps out there, but yeah, usually they charge a little bit. Looks like B, you can send their mine tokens and swapped ergs to a receive address of their choice, and the example is they could mine the tokens to themselves or send them to someone else, or theoretically 10 different people, which is pretty cool to see. Hopefully if you have one person in a family that's, chosen to mine, and potentially they could distribute funds, or, there's a lot of different ways you could use that tool. It's a pretty cool thing. I like it.
You could kind of look at it as in regards to sort of a mining collective. So if you get a group of friends together or something along those lines, and you can just receive payouts.
Set your percentages and go. That's awesome. Looks like number 6. They were made aware that someone tried to swap their Neta from the Neta pool with GuapSwap version 1.1.1 beta, but their MVP beta was only designed for Erg to token swaps, not to support the Neta to whatever they were trying to swap. So they're considering adding this to the multi-token swap contract such that token swaps become possible from the subpool, which is absolutely amazing. That way, whatever potential subpool, Getblok or, perhaps another subpool in the future will spin up. You have the ability to mine non-native Ergo tokens and swap them potentially to 10 different people or 10 different assets. That's really flexible. I like it. And then at the very least, they'll add a safeguard so that if tokens are sent to the proxy contract, they'll just be refunded and not get burned.
Yeah, always good to have that little safeguard there. It's really cool to see what they're doing there, actually. I often say this with Getblok, they're making mining fun, and having all these sort of utilities there for miners, it just sort of continues that same road.
It opens, both of them, GuapSwap, Getblok, they open a lot of potential, right? And so it's like, you do have the initial implementation, but then it's like, okay, well, taking that as a base tool, what can you build with that? And I think it really does open a lot of potential. I like it.
Yeah, especially when we have sort of some more wrapped assets or blue chip tokens on Ergo as well. So being able to swap into, say, Bitcoin or USDT, whatever sort of assets that are on Ergo, you can build the portfolio around that.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got Liquid Phase and their update with Swamp Audio. So published their alpha version for the Lavarel's Statamic starter kit to GitHub. It includes several libraries for Ergo in the modules. So you can jump onto their GitHub there for the terahertz starter. Testing out the Lavarel's new web packing solution. Just for the local environment, finding it superior to the Webpack mix. We'll be doing a refractor to work at the entirely Verte as an SPA without the needing to refractor any backend of the MVC. Set up local GraphQL instance to begin working on their own instance of Nemo's GraphQL Explorer instance, and just begun local experimentation into Tone.js to integrate internal DAW functions into the audio stem. It's pretty cool. Another one sort of jumping onto the GraphQL sort of side of things as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty common framework. I don't even think Nemo is fully done with his initial roadmap, and you already have people that are playing with it. That's awesome to see. Power of open source right there.
Exactly. Moving on, we've got Low Key Nerd and from Blitz TCG.
Sure, it looks like Blitz has been very busy busy enough that they've skipped a few of these updates. There's a team of over 10 people now that are managing, and that takes time. It looks like, in brief, the deck builder for Alpha is almost complete. The friends list is almost complete. They now have 8 artists on the team who are furiously working on card art. Website design is mostly complete. The website dev has started working in earnest. They're working on a myriad of other things. Follow their Twitter, their YouTube, their Discord. That's the best way to stay in the loop. And it looks like they released another soundtrack, and that's some pretty high quality art that they're putting out.
The art, really also the compilation that they put together for that soundtrack. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty high end. I enjoyed listening to that, but then also look at the artwork as well. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it really is. I'm excited to see that come out of the community as well. It's one of those things. Like this is, it's unpredictable. People come in with passion. They come in with ideas, and then people gravitate to that. And I'm excited to see where they take it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the ones I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on. Moving on, we've got LadoPixel. So an update from Schedule Erg Web. So this is pretty cool, actually, little sort of tool, being able to encrypt the image with a key and then create an NFT with the encrypted image. So
that kind of screws up the whole right click, doesn't
it? Exactly right. Just have to screenshot the key itself. It's pretty funny. But it's a unique use case as well. So if you want to check out, head over to Lado's Twitter page. He's got a couple of running sort of examples there.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, it's a tool that opens a lot of possibilities. I always, find that just kind of fascinating in terms of thinking what's possible.
Or closes them with the encryption. Moving on, we've got Ilya from Ergodex.
So it looks like the Explorer, he's been working on requests for caching the backend. The Ergodex UI has a new table view component, a new list component, virtual scroll list, new pools, positions, liquidity lists. They've got some new charts on pools, positions, and liquidity items. Swap adaptive designed, and mobile modals are in development, looks like.
It's nice to see all that sort of coming together. And also, Yasha didn't put this one together. There's no emojis on this update. So that's it for this week's developer update. What sort of piqued your interest in that one? It's quite a big update.
The thing that I love the most about the Ergo development community is the nature of open source, is where one project lays, let's say they build something, right? Nemo is building GraphQL, right? And so you already have a project that is able to pull that into their design, which not only allows them to implement it, but potentially test it, find bugs, and give feedback of what they need. And so it just creates a feedback loop of growth that is powerful. I know that open source is becoming less and less popular as money has moved into the crypto space. But I think that looking at what Alex has built with Ergo, that it was built from tools that he built that were open source to building an open source blockchain, that is kind of the core of what Ergo is an open source community. Because we talk about decentralization in terms of hardware, right? Decentralization of miners, but decentralization of code, having local code that you can look at the source code, or have anyone anywhere, even if they have no experience, they can come in and they can learn, right? That is a powerful driver, because everybody starts somewhere. So having all of this open information, and hopefully with time, with greater documentation, it just creates acceleration and growth. Yeah, so I'm always happy to see that.
A lot of people sort of learn by looking as well. So you're not sort of starting from that from the ground zero. So you can say another example is the DApp connector that the NightOwl guys have put together. If you wanted to sort of know the nuts and bolts about how that's sort of been configured and actually compiled, you can jump in there, have an understanding of what it actually does prior to sort of jumping in, and then sort of figuring out all the sort of key concepts in that respect. It's just the power of open source.
It's a driver. And, I find it a little sad in the crypto space that people talk about decentralization and then they don't have open source code. To me, that's a bad gimmick. Like, it doesn't make sense. No, that's not popular. People will say, oh, my business, someone could fork me, this, that. I don't care. It's just a principle.
Exactly. And look at Bitcoin, open source from the day one. And then obviously look what's the value that's sort of been built there. There's been forks and things like that, but obviously it retains its value because it's got a community built around it. And I think that's what we're sort of
The
building
truth is
here in
there.
Ergo.
The truth is there. Even Bitcoin forks, like everyone's like, oh, Bitcoin fork. A lot of them actually did lay innovative frameworks that then were taken, and because they were open source, rebuilt. And you can look at like sub-block confirmation that came from Bitcoin. You can look at the concepts of color coins, or that open source nature created much of the crypto industry today.
Yeah.
So I think that driving forward, certainly there's a lot we can learn about building things the right way and having community feedback. But having an open source project, I think, is the core of what Ergo is all about.
Yeah, just hope we retain that sort of principle as well moving forward. So I think that'd be a driving force for the community.
Yeah, that's like on the other hand, we're an open ecosystem, so someone can come in and say, "Screw you, Armenio, I don't want to build open source," and there's nothing I can do about it.
That's the beauty of being open and permissionless.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for tuning in for another weekly developer update. We hope you enjoyed the Ergoversary. Any last words, mate?
Yeah, I would just say, for those of you that are interested in learning more about Ergo, you certainly have a huge reference with not only what Deco has put together with their education and learning about smart contracts, but the community has done a really good job about putting together tools to, watch, monitor, learn, hop in, ask questions. I think that community feedback and the sharing of knowledge of kind of the open source side of development does bleed through. So we're always happy to have discussions.
Very well said. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for tuning in once again for another weekly developer update. Thanks again, once again, Joe. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.